G'day, welcome back to the channel. Hey, have you ever tried to repeat a beer that turned out amazing only to find the next batch didn't even come close? Or wondered why you can never quite hit those numbers that Brewfather or Beersmith reckons you should? Chances are it's not your fault. The truth is, half the gear we use as homebrewers is lying to us. Everything from dodgy plastic jugs to, cheap thermometers, bargain bin refractometers from AliExpress, they all bend the truth. And when your gear lies, your beer's the one that's paying the price. So in this video, I'm going to show you which gear's fibbing, which gear you can trust, and how to get some honest numbers out of your brewery. Oh, and stick around to the end because I'll also share 3 kits with you. A beginner setup for around about that $100 Australian, a sweet spot kit around about that $200 to $250, and an advanced kit for people with more money than sense. I'm kidding, of course. In my case, the kids have got together and bought some great gear for me for Christmas, birthdays and Father's Days over the last couple of years. So shout out to my boys. Brewing gear beats socks and undies any day. Let's get into it. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to explain how I learnt what's accurate and what's just telling big porkies. I didn't take the manufacturer's word for it. I tested my gear up against proper lab grade equipment. A mate of mine who works out at the uni, shout out to you Dale, has access to calibrated gear and he let me run some checks. That's also how I found out about Carlton glass hydrometers. I would have never known they existed. And just so you know, every bit of gear you see in this video I bought with my own money. Nothing here is sponsored. So when I say the cheap Amazon hydrometer with a paper scale that slides down the stem is absolute rubbish, I can say that without worrying about upsetting anyone. I can't be bought. Although Rolex, if you're watching, get in touch, I need a new mash timer.
Introducing the Rolex Sub-Brewmaster for the discerning brewer of impeccable taste. Crafted with the precision of Swiss timing and the purity of reverse osmosis. Water resistant to 30 liters, yeast proof, hop resistant, and mash timer certified. Each piece accompanied by a complimentary hydrometer, which, of course, you shall never use. The Rolex GMT Sub-Brewmaster, because life's too short to drink dodgy beers.
So here's the kicker though, the way you use the gear makes all the difference as well. I've got an Anton Paar EasyDens, and it's bang on accurate, but if you don't degas the sample properly, it'll throw all sorts of crazy numbers. Same goes with a hydrometer. If you don't spin these gently in the tube and shake the bubbles off and make sure the sample is at calibration temperature and always read from the bottom of the meniscus, you're going to end up with inaccurate readings. Thermometers, always check them in boiling water. It's 100 degrees Celsius here in Australia at sea level. And if you live at altitude, well, that changes that. Ice water should hit 0. Once you know your thermometer's correct, use that as your standard and adjust the others to match. Pro tip, if you buy a new brewing system, test its built-in thermometer in boiling water on day 1, not 3 weeks later. Don't ask me how I know that. While you're at it, check your ferment fridge as well as your kegerator. Remember, temperature directly affects CO2 volume. So too cold and too much pressure and boom, you've got an overcarbonated beer. It's happened to me on a couple of occasions and it sucks. And when you're adjusting a gauge, get your eyes right down to level with it. No leaning in from the side. Parallax error will stitch you up every time. pH meters. Recalibrate every 30 days or every time you brew, whichever comes first. Keep calibration solution in the fridge, and once they're used, chuck them out. Remember, if the probe dries out, it dies. Scales are pretty decent normally, but here's a hack. Grab a 1 kilo bag of table sugar from Woolies, take it to Australia Post and get them to weigh it on their postal scales. Those things are deadly accurate and they're calibrated. Write the real weight on the bag, and when you bring it home, use it to calibrate your kitchen scales. And hey, make sure you drop the postie a couple of home brews off to say thanks. I guarantee you they won't say no. This El Cheapo jug has caused me more grief than I care to mention. The thing is out by nearly 100 mils a litre. Now that doesn't sound like much, but when you're making a 23 litre batch, if you haven't marked your fermenter, and are just counting jugs, you could literally be adding another 2.3 litres of water, making hitting your numbers nearly impossible. Now, I know I'm probably not the only red-blooded Australian male that comes out into his shed and thinks about jugs. I like them all, from the really, really small ones to the massive ones. Anyway, back on topic. There's one thing you probably haven't thought about when it comes to jugs themselves, is that where you mark them actually matters. So, water expands by about 4% when it gets over about 80 degrees Celsius. So what I do is I mark mine in two places. The red marks are for when it's hot. The blue marks are for room temperature water.
Goddamn nerds.
First thing we're going to do is turn on our scales, put our jug on, tear it off, and then measure out 1 kilo. Righto, once we've got that reading exactly 1 kilo, we're going to come down at eye level and mark it. You can see that's the manufacturer's mark there, and the water level's just sitting just above it. Now that you've got a jug that's telling you the truth, go forth and use your calibrated jug to mark out your fermenter at the 23 litre mark, or whatever your normal batch size is. For stainless steel, I've had luck with a DIY electro etching the stainless itself, and I'll show you how that works a bit later on. Just hang on. Next up, let's talk temperature. Hitting the right mash temperature is one of the most important steps in brewing. Get it wrong and your beer won't come out anywhere near what you planned it to be. I almost guarantee it. Let's dive over and have a look at my thermometer lineup. So this is my thermometer lineup that I keep here in the doghouse. I've got a glass lab thermometer. I've also got a cheapish digital thermometer, and of course a Thermapen digital thermometer. So now this little glass number is older than I care to remember. It's slow, but it's accurate, and I keep it around as an analog backup. If you've got a glass thermometer, don't use it as a stirring stick, it'll just end in disaster. So this cheapish digital, it lags, but not so badly that by the time it shows you the mash temperature, your mash's already moved on with its life. Some of the cheaper ones I've bought over the years have been really crap, so you pretty well do get what you pay for. Now, the Thermapen. Now these are fast and accurate, and look, it costs more, I'm not gonna lie, this was about $189, but once you use one, you'll never go back. As a bonus tip, always test your thermometers in ice water and boiling water. So here in metric, that's 0 degrees for your ice water and 100 degrees for your boiling water. If they can't get those right, either chuck them in the bin or write the correction on painter's tape and stick it on the back of the thermometer somewhere. As a bonus tip, buy a spare set of batteries for these and chuck them in the fridge. Nothing screws you over faster than a flat digital thermometer on brew day, and mine, from experience, inevitably always stops working right as I go to check my temperature after I've already mashed in. That's why I've got the analog as a backup. Now, let's talk a bit about gravity, and I don't mean apples falling out of trees and hitting you on the head.
So the theory of beer o'clock became more important than gravity.
Or that check you do after a dozen beers to make sure it still works at 1:30 in the morning. Let's dive over and have a look at some of the hydrometers I've got.
I'm sorry, Harry. I can't let you do that.
All right, so what you're looking at is my collection of what's surviving that I haven't broken over the years of glass hydrometers. This one's the offender that I was telling you about. It works like it's been blown by a drunk glass blower. It's never given a true reading in its life. And I worked out why. It's because the paper insert is actually loose and moves up and down. Now, this is my go-to. Up here, this is the GSG 1050, and it reads from 1.000 up to 1.050, and it cost me about $60. Yeah, that's more than, 3 times the price of the other hydrometers here, but it's more accurate, and accuracy matters most when you're checking your final gravity. Now, why is that, you might ask? Well, because if your hydrometer lies, you could think your fermentation's finished when it really hasn't. Canberra was absolutely terrible for this during the fringe seasons, like when we were coming into or going out of winter. I wasn't running any type of temperature control until a mate gave me an old waterbed heater that I used to sit my fermenters on and keep them warm. Otherwise, the yeast would knock off early once it cooled down. And because of that, I nearly made 4 dozen bottle bombs. Lucky I caught them before they went off. Or worse still, you could think your beer has a higher or lower ABV than it really does. Both are bad, but especially if you're thinking about you're going to have a couple of mid-strength beers and go and drive somewhere thinking that you're going to be okay. Look, the GSG 1050, it's narrow range, and I'll get it to focus. Focus, Daniel-san. You can see there, it's got a really narrow range, so it's stable and it's easy to read. Look, it's the one I reach for most often on brew days, as well as when I'm packaging the beer. Now, I've also got its high-tech replacement, which is the Anton Paar EasyDens. Now, it's fancy, digital, and scary accurate. And it only needs a 2mm sample size. It's also got a couple of party tricks when it's paired with the SmartRef refractometer, which I also got given as a birthday present. Now, these two, when they're paired together, their party trick is that they can tell you the ABV of a beer without knowing the original gravity. But for most home brewers, you definitely don't need one. They're a great item, don't get me wrong. I'm actually in love with them, and I use them just about every brew day. But for most brewers, and me included, the GSG 1050 is an absolute workhorse. And even now, it's what I reach for final gravity checks before packaging, because I get 100 mils to sample and it gives me a taste before I package it. The Anton Paar uses a 10mm syringe, and it only takes 2 mils to actually fill up the sample chamber, and then it gets flushed away, and that's not enough to have a taste and see how your beer's coming along, or to make any sort of dry hopping adjustments, whether you need to dry hop in the keg on the fly. Now I'm going to show you how to mark your stainless steel like a pro, with nothing more than a 9-volt battery, a battery snap, a couple of alligator clips and a cotton bud. The method that I'm about to show you is completely sanitary, but more importantly, it's permanent. That being said, once you measure your 23 litres or whatever size batch you're doing, make sure you measure it twice, because once you put this stuff on, it ain't coming out. It's actually etched into the surface of your stainless steel. So to put an etched mark on stainless steel, in this instance, we're going to be using my El Cheapo brew kettle from Big W. We first need a couple of things. Now, I've just got a 9-volt battery cable with a couple of alligator clips on the end, a 9-volt battery, get a decent quality one, a 30mm shot glass, a couple of cotton tips, some measuring spoons, some double strength vinegar. It doesn't have to be the expensive stuff, as well as some table salt or cooking salt. It doesn't matter whether it's iodised or not. So what we'll do is we'll move our application tools to one side. I'll show you how that works in a minute. But we'll mix up our electrolyte first. To do that, we're just going to pour 30 mils of our vinegar into our cup. Move that out of the way. And we'll come in and we just want about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We just put that in the vinegar and stir it to dissolve it. I'll finish that up off camera and I'll see you in a sec. So that's all nicely dissolved. So what we'll do is just move that over to one side and I'll just go and grab the kettle that we're going to do. Now, the kettle prep itself, all I've done is I've just masked off an area on the inside of the kettle, you can see that, with just a slot. And I've wiped that down with isopropyl alcohol. Now, I'm not going to show you cutting tape and wiping stuff down with isopropyl alcohol. If you can't do that, you need to go outside and touch some grass. All right, so that's our kettle. That's how it's prepped. All right, next we'll prep our battery. So we just put our battery cable, if we're going to untangle it here, onto our battery. And then we're going to clip the negative side to the kettle. And then we're going to take one of our cotton buds. We're going to dip the cotton bud in our electrolyte solution. Now, it doesn't have to be soaking wet, just needs to be wet. And then we're going to hook up our positive alligator clip like that and come in and just dab where we want that etching to be. And it's important that when we're doing this, we don't stay in the one spot for too long. You'll see some sizzling and fizzing and the like. And it'll progressively get darker and darker and darker. Like I said, we just come and just dab away at it and you'll see it fizzing and carrying on. And we just want to keep working our way along that mark.
A few moments later.
Moment of truth. Now, I've only spent about 5 minutes doing this one. You can spend, 15, 20 minutes doing yours. And the longer you do it for, obviously, the darker it gets. So let's get rid of the tape. And I'll do this with his hair. And if I just give that a quick wipe over, you'll see that we've got a permanent food safe line now etched into our kettle. And you can see that's our brand new etched in 10 litre mark on the side of the kettle. Pretty good. Now that's not going to come off. It's food safe. And more importantly, it's not going to harbour any bacteria if you were to mark your fermenter like that. Now, I've done mine. A mate of mine's missus has a cricket cutter. She printed me out some stencils and they came up a real treat. But you can get away with painter's tape if you're a tight ass like me. Now that we're happy with our handiwork, what we need to do is neutralise that acid, and I do that with a bit of baking soda in some water, give it a rinse. Again, just let it air dry to repassivate itself and you should be good to go. Now, before we get on to refractometers, I'm going to do it to you. Let's have a quick word from our sponsors. I'll see you after the break.
Are you a middle-aged man who is bald and addicted to brewing beer in his shed? Do you have trouble attracting the attention of your significant other? Then you need to try Homebrewer's #1 secret. try Stupid, the #1 spray in the world that makes you at least 85% more attractive 2% of the time. It's guaranteed to drive your wife crazy, just like when you leave the toilet seat up.
Wanna know what also makes you more attractive? Women find subscribers to this channel irresistible. In fact, when Harry's wife sees this ad, she won't be able to keep her hands to herself. So try Stupid. Another dodgy product from Doghouse Brewing. Side effects may include increased consumption of mid-strength lager, spontaneous hop purchases, and unsolicited homebrew advice to strangers. Results not guaranteed. Your mileage may vary.
Welcome back. Here's another quick pro tip for you. The only liquid that I've found that actually works to make you more attractive to the opposite sex, it's called Shiraz or Chardonnay. Mind you might need a couple of bottles, especially if you've got a head like mine. Let's get back into it. All right, refractometers. Now, I've been on a bit of a pilgrimage with these. I've got 4 of them here. The cheap AliExpress special. I've got the Keg King Refract that I bought from Keg King direct on their website. The Kegland Sabre. And of course, the Anton Paar SmartRef. Now here's the funny bit. Same wort, 4 different readings. The AliExpress reckons it's higher than a mid-strength, but the SmartRef and the Kegland Sabre says it's basically a barley wine. So what do you believe? For my choice, if you were gonna go out and get one, for most brewers, it's definitely not the AliExpress. It's either the Kegland or the Keg King. Now look, the Keg King will do the job. They're reliable, but the Kegland Sabre won't stitch it up and you won't be swearing at the wort. It's got built-in wart correction factors. So if you're going for the cheaper Keg King option, you'll definitely need to use a wart colour correction to get an accurate reading, especially if you're doing dark beers. They also don't give you, all of them don't give you an accurate reading once alcohol's present and fermentation's finished. So the SmartRef from Anton Paar, it does the maths for you and works it out. But if you've only got the SmartRef, you'll need to know what the original gravity is to calculate your ABV. There's calculators built in to Beersmith, Brewfather, and there's always Brewer's Friend online if you go for either the Kegland or the Keg King. Now, if you're going to go with any of these, it doesn't matter. They'll still need to be zeroed or calibrated every time you use them with distilled water. To do that, there's an adjusting screw on the top of this one. It's on the bottom of the Kegland Sabre. It's on the top of this one. The SmartRef itself is calibrated from within the app. So you just put your distilled water into the sample chamber and away you go. Now, I know someone's going to ask me, yes, I love the SmartRef from Anton Paar. Look, I had an Hanna Instruments one that died a slow, painful death because I left El Cheapo batteries in it and they leaked and corroded all over the inside and it was just game over. Lesson learned, don't buy El Cheapo batteries. Sometimes I just can't help myself and I give in to my inner tight ass who convinces me to cheap out. Now, because I'm old and as blind as a welder's dog and wear multifocal glasses, using a manual refractometer is just a pain in the ass because I've either got to look through the wrong part of my glasses to take the reading or take them off to adjust the refract. So for me, it's digital all the way. So shortly we're about to check out pH meters. Look, these aren't something you're going to need straight up. If you're just starting out, pH is probably the last thing you want to worry about. That's why I left it till last. You really only need to start playing in this space once you've got everything else in your process dialed in. And then it's mainly if you're going to be brewing all grain or getting into kettle souring or mucking about with water chemistry. That's where pH becomes huge. And honestly, it's a whole topic by itself. And you can really dive down the rabbit hole and get right into the granular detail of it. let's dive over and have a look at my lineup of pH meters that I've bought over the years, and I'll give you my opinions on them. So here's my lineup of pH meters that I've bought over the years. For the beginner level, you've got the Bev Doctor from Kegland. The medium level, the Milwaukee, and for the more advanced level, I've got the Hanna Instruments beer pH meter. Now, the Bev Doctor. These are cheap and cheerful, but it drifts around like I do after 3 pints of New England IPA. The Milwaukee, it's rock solid, but about 120 bucks. It's reliable as your mate who shows up every brew day just for the free samples. Now, the Hanna, this is a semi-pro level. It costs nearly double that of the Milwaukee setup, but it's like the sports car of pH meters, except you've got to calibrate it every time before you drive it. Which brings me to a tip. Always calibrate your pH meter before brew day and never let the probe dry out or it's cactus done finito. Make sure you store it in electrolyte storage solution. While we're on that, the advantage of the Bev Doctor, and Kegland's got one out as well, in their pH meter, you can actually buy replacement probes. So if you do let the thing dry out, the whole thing isn't just buggered. You can just swap out the probe and you're back in business. And quick bonus tip before we move on, whatever you do, cool your samples down a bit before sticking the pH probe in. Yeah, I know they all advertise automatic temperature calibration, but trust me, you're asking for trouble plunging the probe straight into a sample mash at 65 degrees plus. So, what do I do to get around that is when I take a sample, I've got a number of these little Pyrex measuring glasses and I drop them in the freezer. So once I've taken a sample, I let it cool for about 5 minutes and then drop it into the frozen Pyrex, and that brings it down to room temperature in about 2 minutes flat. It's safe for the probe and it means more accuracy for the reading, and it means you're not shelling out for a new meter every time you forget to not drop it into that 65 degree wort. So for the beginner tier, I'd recommend the Kegland Refractometer for about 25 bucks, a decent set of 5 kilo kitchen scales, a good hydrometer for about 15 to 20 bucks, a glass lab thermometer, they're around about 10 bucks, your Bev Doctor pH meter. Now that's perfect for kit and kilo brewers just starting to step into steeping grains or into all grain. Now for the medium tier, around about that 200 to 250 bucks. You've got the Kegland Sabre refract for about 49 bucks. 10 kilo kitchen scales, look for Salter or similar. Lab grade certified hydrometer. Thermapen style knockoff digital hydrometer. The Milwaukee pH meter, they're about 120 bucks, as well as a smaller gram scale for weighing out your dry hops. This is the sweet spot for most home brewers. Now for our advanced tier, and this is going to cost you well over $1,000, we've got the Anton Paar EasyDens, the Anton Paar SmartRef as your refractometer. You've got the Hanna Instruments beer pH meter, a set of small gram scales to measure out your dry hops, a 10 kilo as well as a 40 kilo set of shop scales. I'd recommend you also grab a laboratory grade hydrometer, a Thermapen top of the range thermometer, and as a bonus, if we're going to start getting into cubing beer and the like with no chill, I'd recommend a contactless laser thermometer. Look, this is lab grade gear and it's complete overkill, but if you've got the cash and you just love gadgets, I say go for it. So, a couple of quick extras before we wrap up. Always calibrate your brew gear. Don't ever assume that it's going to tell you the truth straight out of the box. Store your hydrometers and glass thermometers safely. Broken glass helps no one. When your hydrometer's not being used to take a sample, it's in the storage tube. I've lost count of the amount that I've broken on brew days. Write your calibration corrections on a piece of tape and stick it directly to the item itself. It saves heaps of faffing around on brew day. So, is your brew gear fibbing to you? Well, it probably is, but now you know how to catch it out. Remember, you don't need to spend thousands of bucks on lab level gear to make great beer, but what you do need is honest numbers. And if your hydrometer, like my old one, has gone yellow, don't chuck it, hang on to it. When Antiques Roadshow comes around, it may be worth something one day. That's what I keep telling the girl as to why I won't get rid of all the stuff that's hanging around out here in the shed. Hey, look, thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and give it a thumbs up. It tricks the YouTube algorithm into thinking that this video is worth watching. Oh, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, ring the little bell icon. That way you're not going to miss out when the next video drops, and I don't have to take on any more dodgy sponsors. And let me know in the comments what your worst lying bit of brewing gear has been. I want to see who's been stitched up just as hard as me. Oh, and if you haven't seen the Spotify playlist, I'll link to it up here somewhere. Get into that. It's yours and you can add your favourite tunes to it. That way we can all rock out on brew day to the Doghouse playlist. Look, I'll catch you on the next one. Get into your tools and make sure that they're telling you the truth. Remember, life's too short to have gear that tells you porkies or to drink dodgy beers. Cheers. Oh yeah.